Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie, and we've got a show for you today. First topic we're going over is Randy Arozarena being traded to the Seattle Mariners in a blockbuster that happened last night. After that, we'll be going over A.J. Puck being traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Giants and Rangers trade deadlines, and then James Paxton to Boston and Austin Hayes to Philadelphia. But before all that, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers to ensure that your question does get read on the air. Use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. Your ladies love the show, and your ladies mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get into the show for today. All right, so yesterday was an insane day to be a baseball fan. So much news happening all over the league, and really was one of the big reasons why I love the trade deadline. Yesterday was a prime example of how fun it was and how great it can be. There was just news coming in after news last night. I mean, we of course first had this trade, the Randy Arozarena trade, which I'll be talking about. Then we had some articles coming in about the Giants and the Rangers, what their directions will be at the trade deadline. Before that, we also had A.J. Puck going to Arizona, which I'll be talking about. And then also this morning, we had the trade of Austin Hayes to Philadelphia and James Paxton to Boston officially. So we'll be going over all that today, but for the first segment, I wanted to go over and focus on one major person and the blockbuster trade that did happen last night. Randy Arozarena, the star outfielder for the Tampa Bay Rays, has been traded, and he's been traded to the Seattle Mariners. Wow, wow, wow. Now, yesterday was insane seeing this happen. First off, a report came out from a reporter I knew about, but he hasn't always entirely been right. You know, there's some reporters that are really either on the money or completely way off. So I took it with a grain of salt, but I was like, okay, that'll be really interesting. And then I saw it from a Mariners report, and I was like, oh, wow, it's real. And then I saw it from Rosenthal, and I was like, wow, that really just happened. It was a shocker last night. I did not expect Randy to get traded. And also, I didn't expect him to get traded that early. I mean, the trade deadline's on Wednesday. We still have, 4 or 5 days till we get there. So really was a crazy night last night, and I did want to talk about this Arozarena trade to Seattle and how big of a blockbuster it actually is. Now, obviously, Randy has become one of the most known players in all of baseball over these past few years, being from a nobody in the Cardinals organization to becoming a star outfielder with the Rays. Really broke out during that 2020 playoff run where the Rays were 2 wins away from winning a world championship. And since then has continued to be a great, great player with this Rays team. I would say become the face of this franchise for this Rays team, especially after Wander Franco and that entire situation happened, after he left, obviously. So Arozarena being traded is not only a blow to the Rays organization and fan base, I'd say, it's also a really good move by Seattle, and I did want to talk about it. So Seattle acquired him for 2 prospects. I forgot their names, actually. Brody Hopkins, I believe it is, and then there's one other guy who I'm going to try and remember his name as I think about it. But so I want to talk about what this trade means for Seattle, and do I like it or not. So first off, do I like this trade for Seattle? Yes, I like this trade a lot. I think it was a fantastic trade by them. Really, really good, and yeah, just absolutely fantastic. So in exchange for him, they traded Brody Hopkins, a right-handed pitcher, and then Aiden Smith, an outfielder. So in this trade, the Mariners are now getting a very, very good outfielder in Randy Arozarena, a guy who knows how to hit, who has hit for his entire career, and is just an overall very known player as well that you can really market around. The thing with Randy is, and I think the reason why the Rays decided to trade him this year, was that he's really not having a great season. Currently only a 109 weighted runs created plus, and really before this month or two, he was really doing rough. Now he has picked it up recently, which obviously is a very good sign for the Mariners. And you traded for him not for what he did in Tampa, but what you think he can do in the future. So overall, I still love this trade. I think the Mariners were very desperate for bats. I don't think they were hiding that. And the fact that they're able to get Randy a few days before this deadline as well and continue to be open for more trades as well, I think is a really, really good sign. I really did not know if the Mariners were going to fully buy like they should have, but I think they recognize an opportunity here to say, you know what, this rotation is probably the best in baseball. It's not going to be this good for much longer, maybe 2 to 3 more years we have for really the core of this rotation, because some guys are going to have to start to leave or get traded because of contract situations. Luis Castillo's going to get older. Some guys might become bust, get injured. Pitching is so volatile, you don't really know. So they saw the opportunity they had with this rotation and went out and got a star player in Randy Arozarena. Arozarena is going to slot immediately into the middle of that lineup, probably going to be the 2, 3, 4, or 5 hitter, really add just a lot of length to that lineup and overall is just a fantastic addition. Again, he's not having the best season this year, yes, but you look at his track record, you look how consistently good he has been. I think it's a really good trade, and I absolutely love it. Again, I think the Mariners needed bats. Their rotation is elite, absolutely elite, and you needed to add bats to be able to really compete this year, and getting Randy is a fantastic, fantastic trade, and a really, really great job by Seattle to better capitalize on this season where they knew they had such good pitching. I don't think the Mariners are done as well. I think there are a lot more bats they could target. I think there are a lot more people. I am going to be doing my trade deadline full of predictions on Monday. I do have the Mariners getting, I'll just say now, 2 more bats. I'll let you know who that is then. But also, I'm sure trades are going to happen over the weekend as well while I'm not on here, of course. So I'll be talking about those on Monday whenever they happen. I mean, I don't remember this many trades happening this early. I mean, Randy's a pretty blockbuster trade in my opinion. You also, of course, had the one I'll be talking about next, AJ Puck, and then also Austin Hayes to Philadelphia as well. So really a lot of trades going on, and Randy was just the start of it. So yeah, I love the trade for Seattle. I think it was really, really good. And yeah, I think they needed bats. They knew that, and being able to capitalize on that and getting one of the best on the market is a fantastic job. Now for the Rays. Man, was I shocked if they actually traded Randy. I really did not think that Randy was going to go. I really did not think that they would blow up this team, kind of. And trading one of your franchise icons is pretty crazy to me. So getting back, of course, you got Brody Hopkins and Aiden Smith. So we'll go over that quickly. So with Brody Hopkins, he is a right-handed pitcher who's 21 years old. He slots immediately into being the 6th best prospect in the Rays farm system, according to MLB Pipeline. Hopkins is a very intimidating presence on the mound, 6'4", 200, has a 60-grade fastball, 60-grade slider. Isn't graded the highest among most people, but, has had really good stats this year in A-ball, and I really like his stuff. So I think Hopkins can end up becoming a plus starting pitcher in this league. I really like the move, and as much as he wasn't a guy that a lot of people looked at as a big piece, I mean, we were looking at some of the top 100 prospects the Rays had, like Colt Emerson, Harry Ford, someone like that. I still think getting Hopkins is a really good move, and I like what he brings to the table a lot here for Tampa. You also, of course, get Aiden Smith, a 19-year-old outfielder in A-ball for them, 20 years old, sorry. He is 6'2", 190. He has pretty solid stats here this year in A-ball and has an ETA of 2027 here for Tampa Bay. Just got drafted last year in the 4th round by Seattle, so I also like getting him a lot. So as much as these guys aren't the most known players that Seattle gave up, I still think they're very solid prospects. But the thing is with Seattle, they have so many good young players and prospects that these guys really aren't even going to make a dent. I'm sure they'll become stars in Tampa because Tampa develops everyone into stars. But, I think Seattle did a really good job not giving up any of their top prospects for Randy and being able to, have the flexibility to make more trades relatively soon. For Tampa, what I don't get is selling Randy at his lowest value. Randy has been such a better player than this year overall in his past, and I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to be able to trade him now, trading him when his value is at the lowest it'll ever be. Maybe the Rays think this is for real and that he's going to continue regressing and that they're selling him at the best he's going to get. But I tend to believe that Randy is going to be a very solid player within the Seattle team and is really going to help them out. So I think that's a little perplexing. But, at first I was very surprised the Rays traded Randy. I still am. I still didn't think they would trade him. But it makes more sense as you think about it. Randy only has 2.5 years left. And if you're Seattle, you're probably going to have to extend him, I would say, maybe this offseason to the next when he has 2 or 1 years left in his contract. He's going to get a big bump in arbitration, probably going to be a salary around $8 million, which for the Rays, a small market team who doesn't spend a lot, is going to be something that is significant and something they have to worry about. So that is, is something you have to factor in with the Rays. Also, the Rays have a lot of good young players. I mean, you have Curtis Meade coming up through the ranks, Junior Camarino as well, a lot of other young prospects that I think are going to come up. Carson Williams is someone that's going to be up rather soon, I'd say. Xavier Isaac, Braden Taylor. All these kind of guys are coming up, and you also have a lot of other talented guys as well. So even though Randy is a very good player, he's not at his highest value. He hasn't done the greatest this season, and you have guys that are going to come up through the ranks. Now, I think a lot of people, going back to the prospect part of it, were a little surprised at how light, quote-unquote, the prospect capital was because you were expecting a bigger name. But Randy doesn't play great defense. He's having not a great season this year. And again, he's going to become expensive. So I think that's why really the prospect haul was a little bit less than people expected. I still think the Mariners did great in this trade. I still think Randy's a fantastic player that'll really help out their lineup. But overall, I understand why it was a little less than what the public expected. Now, the Rays, where do they go from here is an interesting question. There's been a lot of rumors circulating that they're going to trade their superstar third baseman, Isaac Paredes. I think starting pitching is much more certain that they're going to trade. They have so many guys coming back from injury next year that guys like Zach Littell and Zach Eflin are really, are guys that they really don't need for next year. I do expect Eflin to get traded. I expect Zach Littell to get traded as well. I'll be going over both those guys on Monday. Both are, having jumps in their contracts as well, specifically Eflin, who goes from, I believe, $11 million to $18 million, which is a significant jump, especially for a Rays team. So I think I think the pitching for the Rays is much more certain to get traded, but Paredes, I just wouldn't understand. He's a significantly better player than Randy. I think he's a guy that slots in as maybe a top 20, top 30 player in the whole game. I mean, just looking how good his stats are. So if the Rays traded him, I understand you have guys that can fill in for you like Curtis Mead, Junior Camarino, but man, if I'm trading Paredes, I need a package to end all other packages. Like, I need something huge to get him. I'm just not sure, any team's going to be willing to give up that, especially with all the controllable years he has left. So I think Paredes is still less likely to get traded than Randy. I mean, I didn't think Randy was going to get traded, but I thought he was more likely than Paredes. So we'll have to end up seeing what does happen there, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch the Rays going from here now, seeing what they do with this deadline, and if this is just a retooling kind of trade that they're focusing on for next year, or if they're fully blowing up this team and trading some of these guys like Paredes, like Brandon Lau as well. So that is my first segment here, talking about Arozarena and his trade to Seattle. Moving into our second segment, which is going to be talking about AJ Puk and the trade that lands him as an Arizona Diamondback, the other significant trade from yesterday. So yeah, we'll be going over that. And we'll talk about that after the break. So we'll see you after the break. So thanks and bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into the show for today. All right, so moving into our second segment here, which is talking about the other pretty significant trade from last night, which is going over AJ Puk and his trade to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Let's get into it. Now, Puk was someone I was monitoring throughout this deadline. I thought he was going to be a really valuable piece of the Marlins, and of course, their exercise in blowing this entire team up. And obviously, that was what happened last night when it broke that he was being traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So, Puk has had a really interesting season this year. Came over a few years ago from Oakland, being traded for former fourth overall pick J.J. Bleday, who really never worked out in Miami. Puk was kind of the same regard, a former top draft pick in Oakland, really just never worked out there, and maybe being traded to Miami, a place that had developed so many pitchers who we thought careers were over, would really help out him. Now, they tried him as a starting pitcher this year, which went absolutely horrible. I mean, as awful as it can get. I mean, he was as bad can be. They moved him back to the bullpen rather quickly, and just like last year when he was there, he really, really shined. Became a plus relief pitcher for this Marlins team. Also a lefty, which of course adds value. So it was very obvious, I think, from the moment that he did so well in the bullpen that he was going to be traded, and that is what ended up happening here. The Marlins traded him to the Diamondbacks last night for a few prospects, but most notably I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. If not, I apologize. Davision De Los Santos, who immediately slots in as the number 4 overall prospect for this Marlins team. Now, I really like this trade for both teams, but let's get into it. So, first off, I'm going to start off with Arizona. Again, A.J. Puck, since becoming a bullpen arm, has really shoved with this Marlins team, has become a plus guy, and I think really fills a skill set for this Diamondbacks team that they needed. I think that bullpen has been a problem for them for the past 2 years now, was last year in the playoffs as well, and Paul Sewald has been a really nice addition since coming over from Seattle, the last year's deadline, but has struggled a little bit, and I think they also have had some trouble bridging the gap of getting to Sewald. I think that the 7th, 8th innings have become a little bit rough for this Diamondbacks bullpen, and being able to add A.J. Puck, a guy who's not only a good lefty reliever, but is under control, and I would also say has some potential still in that arm. I mean, he has electric stuff, so it's not exactly like you're just getting him and he's going to stay the same. No, I think with this Diamondbacks pitching staff and all the pitching coaches they have, they'll be able to develop him more. Brent Strom, who is the Diamondbacks pitching coach, is in my opinion the best in the business. Has done so well with Arizona has done so well with Houston over the past few years. Came to Arizona. I think really can maybe develop some more out of Puck and really make him an elite relief pitcher. I really like this trade a lot for Arizona. I think the price you give puts a little steep, which I'll talk about when going over the Marlins side of this, but I think that Puck is a really nice reliever to add to this pen, brings a lot of depth to this team, and I think was a really fantastic move by Arizona to be able to get him and add him to this already pretty deep pitching staff. And, the Diamondbacks are a very interesting team to watch for the future. Aren't in the best situation right now. I believe are on the outside looking in of the playoffs. Are very close, though. But, you're getting back Jordan Montgomery soon, Eduardo Rodriguez, Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt's still there. Zach Gallen came back a little while ago and has been really solid. So you're getting back all these pieces. I'm sure the hitting will start to get better soon. Corbin Carroll mainly is the guy I'm talking about. And I think adding is the best decision. And adding in a younger arm like Puck, who has control, who can build with this team for the future, adding him into this bullpen, I think was a really good move. I like this move a lot for Arizona, and I think they're going to continue to get better for the rest of the season. I predicted them to make the playoffs a little while back when I did do my playoff predictions. So, again, I think this is a fantastic move by Arizona, and I really like what they were able to do. And I think there's still some needs that have to be met for this team, but if this is any indication that they're going to add, it's very clear that that is what's going to happen, and they're going to continue to add until it gets to August 1st. Sorry about that. Had to cough there. So, going over this trade for Miami, again, it was very obvious that Puck was going to be traded from Miami. He is a very good player who, isn't a position player. So it was very obvious that he was going to be traded from this Miami Marlins team because he's a good player and the Marlins are trying to blow this team up. In this trade, the Marlins receive, again, Davision De Los Santos, who immediately slots in as their 4th best prospect in the entire organization. And my personal thoughts are, I think this is a fantastic trade by Miami. I read an article today, I believe, from Andy Martino, who covers the Mets and Yankees, who said that teams really did not like this haul back for the Marlins. They thought it was a little light. But honestly, I know they know more than me, but I would really disagree to the fullest. De Los Santos is a prospect that I love. I think has a ton of potential, and I think was a really good job of getting him back for a relief arm. Davision has a 40 hit grade, a 60 power grade, an arm grade of 50, and overall is a 50. But really with him, you're looking at this power. I mean, he's going to be up next year, most likely. I'd say maybe even the end of this year, that he's going to slot in immediately as a first base, third baseman, or DH on this team. And he has a lot of power as a young player. Has insane stats this year at AA, hit 372 with an OPS of 1.122, which is absolutely insane. Went up to AAA then, and then hit 289 and an OPS of 926. 926. So Davision is a guy who is a younger player, has a lot of potential with the power bat, and I think really was a fantastic job by this Marlins team to be able to add him into this organization by just giving up a middle relief arm. Really not giving up someone of high caliber prospect wise. I think Puck is a very solid, good player, and I like the trade for Arizona, but I think that getting him for Miami was a really good job. If Davision is a top 100 prospect by the end of this year or by the start of next year, I really would not be surprised. And again, I think this is someone who immediately is going to come up with this with this Miami team and really become an X factor with them. I think he can be up the end of this year and really help out this team. I think he'll be on the opening day roster next year no matter what, and really slot in as a young, talented player to offer here. I really like this trade with Miami. I think they did a lot. I think they did a lot of good here in this trade, getting back Dave Vision, a guy that I think is a really, really solid and good prospect back in this organization. Overall, I think this is honestly a really, really big of a win-win trade here for both these teams. I think that for Miami, you're getting back a very good prospect who slots in immediately as one of the premier guys in your organization for a guy who just simply wasn't a big part of your future in AJ Puck. Arizona now is giving up a very good prospect, but they have a lot of good prospects in the organization as well, like Jordan Lawler. So it's not exactly like you're, taking a huge chunk out of your prospect system, and you're giving up a good guy, but again, you're getting a good player in AJ Puck who has shown to be a very solid reliever for these past few months now since going back to the bullpen, who's really going to add a lot to this Arizona pen, really help out with the depth there, and is really going to help to bridge the gap to get to your star closer in Paul Sewald. So I think this is a classic win-win trade. I think both teams did really well in this, and I really like the outcome. Now, Miami is going to be, of course, very, very interesting to watch for this deadline. I mean, they are probably going to be the most active team here at this deadline. I mean, they have so many players they could trade. I mean, you, of course, have Jazz Chisholm, Josh Bell, Jake Berger, Brian De La Cruz. I'm not sure if I said Jazz Chisholm yet, but if I didn't, there you go. I'm not sure, again, if I said Jake Berger, but there you go. Trevor Rogers is also someone that I could see getting traded. Tanner Scott as well is someone. Other middle relief arms as well, like Andrew Nardi. So this Marlins team is really going to blow up this team within the next few days or so, and I think trading Puck is the start of it. Of course, you traded Luis Arraez back as well, which really showed the first signs of this. So, yeah, the Marlins are really, in my opinion, going to be the most active team at this deadline. They're going to make a lot of moves, and I'm very excited to see what this Marlins roster looks like after this week. There's going to be a lot of moves made. There's a lot of valuable assets they have in this team, and I think, again, trading Puck is really the start of that. I like what they did in this first trade. I like the way Peter Bendix is rebuilding this team. He's not going just halfway in. He's trying to go fully in and trying to be able to say, you know what, this team isn't good enough. We're fully rebuilding. We're not teetering in the middle. We're not becoming mediocre. We're becoming bad to become good in the next few years. And I really like what he's doing. I do think there are some good people within this Marlins organization that you can build around and continue to build around, even with all these guys being traded. So that was our second segment here, talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks trading for AJ Puck of the Marlins. We'll be moving into our third segment, which is going to be talking about the Giants and their trade deadline and the news that they are probably going to become sellers at this deadline. So yeah, we'll be talking about that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into the show for today. All right, so our third topic we are going to be talking about here is going to be about the San Francisco Giants and the news coming out about their trade deadline plans. So let's get into it. Now, the Giants, for the past few weeks or so, have been a team that I've really been watching closely and trying to evaluate to see what direction they are going to go at this trade deadline. I wasn't sure if they're going to be buyers, they're going to be sellers, they're going to be retooling, kind of going in the middle, buying and selling. But I do think we have the definitive answer now after last night. An article came out with Andrew Baggerty and Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. Rosenthal, of course, the senior insider, the guy who lets all the trades go, and Baggerty, who is a top Giants insider, that the Giants most likely are going to be selling at the deadline, and that is big news and something that really, I think, affects a lot of what is going on here. Also in the article, they talk about specific players, including the guy on the screen you see right there, so we'll be talking about him as well. But there are a lot of factors contributing to why the Giants are going to end up being sellers, and they talk about that in the article. The first one is the luxury tax. The Giants have a lot of players on payroll, a lot of expensive players on payroll, and because of that, because of their underperformance as well, they decided that, it is just not worth it to carry all these players, and they really need to get these contracts off the books. And I think that's really one of the big reasons why they are trying to sell at this deadline and get rid of some players. Also, they've just been mediocre. I think that's really it. I've talked before how I like this Giants team a lot. I like the reinforcements they're getting in the second half. But I did say that overall, I think it's a little too late. And I think that right now, the Giants agree with that sentiment. They look at where they are in the standings. They look at the teams above them. They look at what their roster looks like right now. And they're probably thinking to themselves, you know what? We really like who we're getting back. We really like this roster we have. But it's just not going to be good enough. It's just a little too late. And that's kind of it. I mean, you're looking at it right now. They are fourth in the NL West. The Diamondbacks are 8.5 back of the Dodgers. The Giants are 13. That's a significant amount of games. I mean, they're 6 games under 500 as well. I think they're kind of facing reality and saying, you know what, as much as we like the roster reconstructed, as much as we like the guys we're getting back soon, including Robbie Ray, who just pitched yesterday, Alex Cobb, who's coming back soon, it's just not it, and it's time to sell. And unfortunately, because I like this Giants team, I think that's the right decision. I think the Giants are going to take advantage of this seller's market where basically every single team, except like 5, are going to be buying. And they're taking advantage of that, saying, you know what, we have a lot of good players on this team. We like them, but we don't know if they're immediately part of our long-term future. So because of that, we're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to sell. And in the article, it specifically mentioned that Blake Snell has drawn a ton of interest from a lot of teams, which I find fascinating. I think the Giants really have the chance to just really turn this trade deadline on the top of its head and just really make it much more interesting than I thought it could be. The Giants have a ton of players that could be available for trade that I think would really, really make this deadline interesting, and Blake Snell to me is one of them. I think Snell, would really become the biggest trade chip on this entire market, and I think every single contending team will want to get him. It's true that he's not having his best season with San Francisco. That is very true. But at the same time, Snell has done much better as of recently. He won the Cy Young literally just last year. So there's still a lot of pedigree with Snell, and I think a lot of teams that wanted him in the offseason could be knocking on this door saying, you know what, we're not going to get a second chance again to get one of our guys like this. And I think that Snell, honestly, is likely to be traded, and I don't think that was something we were really expecting just a few days ago. So overall, I think that Snell is someone that could go, or is likely to go, and after that, you have to look at other guys who are on 1 to 2 year deals for this Giants team. Matt Chapman, is he likely to go? I'm not sure. I think a lot of teams would love to have him. I mean, one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. Are the Giants going to go farther and trade Camilo Duvall? That's something else that's interesting. I think Mike Conforto is going to be gone. I think Wilmer Flores is going to be gone. I think Mike Yastrzemski is going to be gone. I think Lamont Wade could potentially be gone. I think Alex Cobb is going to be gone. I think they'll listen to offers on Robbie Ray. So there's a lot of interesting things now about this Giants team, what they could end up doing at the deadline, and I think that overall they really have a chance to just make this deadline a lot more interesting than we expected, and it is going to be really interesting to see how far they go, because I think it's clear at this point that the Giants are going to be sellers. They are going to trade a lot of their players, but how far are they going to go? With Blake Snell, he is on really a 1-year deal. Yes, he has a player option for next year, but I don't really think he's going to exercise that if he continues to do as well as he has recently, because he's going to get a big contract if that stays the way it is. So because of that, I think he's going to be traded. Matt Chapman, on kind of a 3-year kind of weird deal like Blake Snell, but I think he has a higher chance of re-signing in the Bay than Blake Snell because of his history there, because the fact that he seems to like it there is from that area as well. So are they going to trade him? Mike Yastrzemski, a guy, has become really a face of that franchise. Are they going to trade him? Are they going to trade Duvall, one of the best closers in all of baseball, who's under contract for a few more years? It really is interesting to see how far they go. I think the main guys that are going to be traded are Taylor Rogers. I think they want to get that contract off the books, and I think a lot of teams would really like to take in a very good lefty reliever that can, pitch really well in the 7th or 8th inning. I think Mike Conforto they would like to get him off the books as well, mainly because of his contract. He's a very okay player, but for his contract, I don't think it's really worth it. So I think those two guys are definitely gone. I think Wilmer Flores could be gone. Not exactly sure what his value is, but I think also something that's interesting with Blake Snell, and I saw Jim Bowden bring this up on Twitter, that is, you have Garrett Crochet now probably not being traded because of, the big thing he threw out, which is that he's not pitching without a contract extension in October. You have Tarek Skubal, who the Tigers were probably never going to trade. And because of that, the Giants are seeing, these two guys who are top of the market aces, who are also happen to be left-handed pitchers, which I'm sure factors in, they're probably not likely to be traded. The Giants probably saw that and said, as much as we love Snell, as much as we maybe want to go for this, we might have to take advantage of this market. And I think a lot of teams who would like to get Snell, who would like to get a Crochet, who would like to get a Skubal, are now seeing that, Snell is available and like, okay, this is the guy we have to pivot to. So I think because of that, because of the decisions that have been made by other teams about their players, I think that they realize, this is a seller's market. There's really right now only 5 or 6 teams that we know are going to be selling, and we have a lot more ammunition to sell than these other teams do. Let's take advantage of that. Let's finally try to get out of mediocrity that we've been in the past few years or so, and take advantage of this market and sell off these guys. I mean, you can get a lot for Blake Snell. You can get a lot for Matt Chapman. You can get some contracts off the books and help your future situation, getting off Conforto and Rogers contracts. So I think that overall, this is going to be very interesting to watch in the next upcoming days, seeing what the Giants do at this deadline, seeing how far they go at this sell-off, and I'm really, really interested to watch what happens. If I'm going to be honest, I think that Snell gets traded. There's a team I have in mind specifically for him, which I'll go over on Monday. Hopefully he's not traded over the deadline, because that would suck, because I really want to go over everything. So selfishly, I'm hoping that there's not many trades over the deadline, so I can go over. I don't have to trade anything. I don't have to change anything about my trade list on Monday. So, I think now the big question we have to ask ourselves about this Giants team is, what does their future look like? Selling off these players that we assume they will, are they going to be rebuilding fully next year? Are they going to be trying to replace some guys through signings, young players coming up? Are they going to trade for MLB-ready prospects? Are they going to be, again, fully rebuilding? What is going to be going on here? I think that that's a really interesting situation we have to ask ourselves, and I'm not sure. I think I really have to look at what they do at this deadline, see how many players they trade, and overall what is going to happen with them, and just what decisions do end up being made by the Giants front office, by the Giants team, and it's going to be very, very interesting to watch over the next upcoming days what decisions the Giants do end up making overall. I think that there's a lot of interesting things they're going to have to decide, and I am very fascinated because, again, I think they have the chance to really change this deadline completely, change the outlook of it, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see what this Giants team looks like. But again, I think this is the right decision for them. I think they should sell. I just think the reinforcements they're getting back are a little too late, and I don't think there's really any way to make the playoffs right now. Again, I think really with the wild card standings right now, I think there's a few teams really locked into their positions, and Giants are 5.5 back, and they would have to pass a number of teams to get there. I think really right now for the 3 wild card spots, it's going to be these few teams: the Braves, the Mets, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, the Pirates. I think it's those 6 teams for 3 spots. I don't really think anyone outside of those teams really has a good chance. I don't think the Reds are really going to do anything there. Cubs already said they're selling. We just talked about the Giants. So I really think it's those 6 teams in competition for those 3 wildcard spots. And it's going to be very interesting to watch, but we at least know that it's most likely coming that the Giants are going to be bowing out of this race and are going to be selling. And they have a lot of good pieces to sell, and I'm very, very interested to see what is going to happen with that. So that is it for our 3rd segment, talking about the Giants and the potential of them selling at the trade deadline. We're moving into our 4th segment here, which is going to be talking about the Texas Rangers and the fact that it has officially come up that they are going to be buyers at this trade deadline, going over that, what it means for the entire league, and talking about it. So we'll talk about that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about the Texas Rangers and their trade deadline. So let's get into it. So over the past few weeks, momentum has been building that the Rangers would end up buying at this trade deadline instead of selling like we expected them to. And that was officially confirmed last night from a report by Ken Rosenthal in an article saying that it's official. The Rangers are going all in. They're trying to win this year. They're trying to repeat as world champions, and that they are going to be buyers at this trade deadline. Now, this is something I expected for a little while now. I thought, again, momentum was building towards that, and it made a lot of sense. Going into this month, it was looked at by a lot of people that, the Rangers would end up becoming sellers because of the way they were performing and where their division was right now. But they've really been the best team in baseball this entire month, and because of that, their philosophy has changed, and now they can justify to themselves, we should be buying, we should be buyers, we should be trying to win. And that is what is going to be happening here now with this Texas team. Ken Rosenthal said last night specifically they are looking for a first base outfielder, DH kind of player, and mainly a right-handed bat as well. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Their lineup is. So I wanted to go over, is this the right decision for Texas? Should they be buying? Who could they get? Some other names as well, and just overall looking at their deadline for them. So let's get into it. So, first of all, I think we have to ask the question, should the Rangers be buying at the deadline? Is this the right decision for them? Now, what I'll say is, I actually think that this is not the right decision. I think that the Rangers are going to have a tough time getting into the playoffs this year, and I think that the way that this team has unfolded, I don't think it's the greatest decision. You're 2.5 games back of Houston, who's first in the AL West right now. You're a game under 500, and you're looking at the AL wildcard right now. You're 5 out. So you would have to overcome both Houston and Seattle to get to this first place in the division, and then overcome Tampa, Seattle, Boston, and Kansas City to get in that wild card spot as well. And some other AL teams maybe even go higher as well. Maybe Detroit does better. Maybe Toronto changes its mind and doesn't sell. So we'll have to see there. But I just don't know if this is the greatest decision to say, we're going to be buying. And I understand why they're doing it, because they're getting guys back in the second half. You're getting Tyler Mahle back. You're getting Evan Carter back. You could potentially get the big boy back, Jacob deGrom. You could potentially get him back for the stretch run. I'm not sure how likely that is with deGrom's injury history. I don't really think you want to rush him, but I understand why they're doing it. They think, with all the guys coming back from injury, with the pure amount of talent they have in this team, they're saying to themselves, you know what, look, we can be buyers at this deadline. We can become a playoff team. And again, I understand. I just don't agree with it. I think it's going to be tough getting into this playoffs right now with the teams above them, especially now that we know Seattle is going to be buying after the blockbuster trade of getting Randy from the Tampa Bay Rays. So I just don't know how I feel about this decision, and I think it's going to be very interesting to watch it unfold over these next few days or so as the deadline gets closer. Now, Rosenthal specifically mentioned, again, a DH-type player, first base, kind of corner outfield-type player, and mentioned a specific name in the article as well that I think is a really good fit, Yandy Diaz. Diaz, of course, is on the Rays, who look like they're selling players of Diaz's caliber, infielders who, position players who are kind of star-like players that only have a few years left, so it will be interesting to see if Diaz is the one to go. But I think he's a really good fit, honestly, on this Texas team. There is a question mark now about his availability, as he has been on the restricted list for a little while. I think dealing with a personal situation we're not exactly sure about, so we might have to see what happens there. But apparently he is coming off it soon, and the Rangers have been mentioned as a team to be of interest to the Rays for Yandy Diaz. Also, the Pirates, the Astros, and the Mariners have been interested in Diaz as well, so I think there's a lot of teams that could end up trading for Yandy, but I think that he is a really good fit here with the Texas team. He adds a right-handed presence at the DH position, as being one of the best consistent hitters in all of baseball, and really adds in a ton of depth to this lineup. I mean, when healthy, this lineup is insane. I mean, you have no bad hitters, really. You have Jonah Heim, Nathaniel Lowe, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Josh Young, who you're also getting back from injury, I didn't mention, Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, Adolis Garcia. You also have someone else in center field whose name I forgot. I was about to say Ezekiel Duran. There we go. I was thinking of Tovar, who's obviously on the Rockies, of course. I was thinking of the wrong name there. But this lineup is already incredible, and I think adding a guy like Diaz there would really help this out. And even though I don't think it's the great decision going for it, he would really help you out. I think that you also do probably need a starting pitcher. I understand you're getting DeGrom back potentially. You're getting back Tyler Mahle, but those are two guys coming off of major injuries. Guys like Nathan Eovaldi is always of injury risk. Max Scherzer is older and coming off a big injury as well. So if I was them, I would try to add a innings-eating starting pitcher. I think someone like Cal Quantrill makes a lot of sense as well. Someone who's under control for next year as well. He's younger and has been stable throughout his career now with the Rockies, so I think that Quantrill could be a really good fit there. Just someone I'm kind of spitballing off the top of my head here. But yeah, if the Rangers are buying, I think they need a reliever, a starter, and then I think a bat like Diaz would make a lot of sense as well. So yeah, I think that as much as buying is what they're going to be doing, I think selling made a lot of sense because you have a lot of good pieces you could sell off. Nate Eovaldi is someone you get a ton for. I really think a ton, considering his expertise in the playoffs that he has had over these past few years. You could really get a lot for him. You get a nice amount for Andrew Heaney, John Gray. You could also maybe look to sell off some bats as well. Maybe Duran, who you maybe view as excess goods at this point because of all the talent you have in your lineup. So Kirby Yates, David Robertson as well, two guys out of the bullpen that would really get a lot as well. So the Rangers are going for it. Not exactly my favorite decision, but I get it. They're getting a lot of pieces back, but I think they could have done really well if they sold at this deadline. And I think with the Astros doing really, really well over these past few weeks, the Mariners now adding and being a great team as well, I just don't know if adding at this deadline is the greatest decision if you're a Rangers fan. But hey, you do you. And again, I think there could be a lot worse decisions. I get it. It's not horrible and franchise ruining. They probably wanted to buy anyways because of just what they did last year, obviously winning the World Series, wanted to repeat with that. So it'll be very interesting to see who they add at this deadline, and just another team trying to add right now. I mean, you're looking at this, the confirmed teams to be selling are really who right now? I would say the Marlins, Rockies, Nationals, Giants, Cubs, that's 5. Then you have the White Sox, A's, Angels. That's 8. 8 out of 30, that's really not much. So I think we're going to see a lot more dominoes fall, and whether it's selling, whether it's buying, really making up their mind. And the Rangers have decided their course. They're going to be buying. They're going to be trying to go for it. And I think that in the end they don't make the playoffs. I just think the Mariners and Astros are better teams, especially now the Mariners adding Arozarena into that lineup, which I really, really like. So we'll end up seeing what happens here at this deadline, seeing what the Rangers do add, seeing what decisions are made. But yeah, going over that and going over the Rangers decision here. We'll be moving into our 5th and final segment here for today, which is going to be talking about Austin Hayes being traded to the Philadelphia Phillies and James Paxton being traded to the Boston Red Sox. 2 more minor trades that I still thought were significant that I did want to end up talking about. So yeah, we'll be going over that, and we'll end up seeing you after the break. So thanks so much, and bye. And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fifth and final segment for today, which is going to be talking about two trades that did happen today, actually, so I wanted to go over them, which were James Paxton and Austin Hayes being traded, respectively. I did, before these trades happened today, have my final segment being a preview of the Astros and Dodgers series, which is going to, of course, start tonight, which, of course, is really big for both teams. Always really fun when those teams match up. But once Paxton got traded and then Austin Hayes got traded as well, I did want to end up talking about these trades and giving my thoughts on them. So let's get into it. So first, I'm going to start off with James Paxton being traded from the Los Angeles Dodgers to the Boston Red Sox. So Paxton was DFA'd a few days ago by this Dodgers team, pretty surprisingly. Has been a really solid piece of pitching depth for this Dodgers team, and DFAing any kind of depth as well, especially pitching, has really been something that was surprising and not something I expected. And once he did get DFA'd, rumors were starting to circulate that the Red Sox would add to him and that they were his likely landing spot. And that, of course, did come to fruition today when multiple reports came out that they were finalizing a trade, and I'm sure that it will be finalized rather quickly. And basically every single big reporter has said the same thing, that yes, the Red Sox are going to end up trading for James Paxton. Now, going first on the Red Sox side, I like this trade a lot. You obviously have a lot of familiarity with Paxton and him pitching there last year. Obviously left him for agency to go to the Dodgers, but again, I like that you were able to add him on this trade, bring him back to Boston because you needed some pitching depth. Your pitching has been really great this year. I mean, surprisingly, and been one of the biggest bright spots of your entire season, but you could still use more. I think you can always use more. And getting back a guy you have such familiarity with, a guy who knows the organization well, knows how to pitch in Boston, which again is not an easy thing, I think is a really good move and a really solid buy low decision to be able to get him. His contract is a lot with $13 million, but I'm not sure what the who is going to eat that and kind of all that, who eats the contract and all those kind of situations. But I still think that overall, Paxton going to Boston is a very solid move by this Red Sox team. Again, they obviously like him a lot if they traded for him after letting him walk in free agency. And adding veteran pitching depth is really always a good move, especially for this Red Sox team that is trying to make the playoffs. You've had some injuries now to Garrett Whitlock, of course. Some of your under pitchers could get injured rather soon. And also, some of your pitchers are still question marks. I mean, Brian Bayo hasn't had the greatest season. And again, some of your pitchers like Nick Pivetta have an extensive injury history where they are question marks. So adding in a player like Paxton, who's older, was experienced in the playoffs, who can eat innings well, who doesn't have the longest injury history, I think that it is a really, really solid, good move, and I like it a lot. I think that the Red Sox did very well here, adding a player that is, a very, very good, solid addition to this team that I really, really like, and I think that overall it was a really solid move on their part. For the Dodgers, I did a full segment on this if you want to go check it out there, but just to go over it again quickly, I think that overall this is a solid move by them. I mean, I'm never a fan of getting rid of depth, but at the same time, the Dodgers have so much pitching depth coming in right now, especially when guys get off the injured list like Tyler Glasnow. You also had Clayton Kershaw come off the injured list yesterday, and I'm sure he'll be pitching rather soon. So it made sense to kind of get that $13 million off your roster and maybe try to use it for another thing. Maybe try to use it to get a center fielder, to get some relievers, to get a third baseman, a first baseman, whatever you want to do. So I think that it made sense to get him off the roster just because of the guys you have coming back. And as much as he has been a very solid player, his peripherals aren't the greatest, and you have a few James Paxton types on your roster, arms that just eat innings in a very solid way that aren't, the greatest, but just, again, do their job eating innings, being a crafty kind of pitcher. So, it was fine getting him off the roster again. Never a fan of getting rid of pitching depth, but the Dodgers know what they're doing always, and I think that it makes some sense because of where the roster is right now for this Dodgers team. Next, we also had another trade, which was Austin Hayes to the Philadelphia Phillies for Christian Pache and Sir Anthony Dominguez. This is a really interesting trade because we always hear that competitive teams are going to make trades with competitive teams, and then we never see it. And it just happened this year finally. Probably the two World Series favorites, I'd say, this year in the Orioles and the Phillies ended up making trades with each other. And it's a pretty significant trade as well. I think Hayes is going to be a relatively everyday player for this Phillies team. And Dominguez is going to slot in as a very solid, high-leverage reliever for this Orioles team. And Pache is going to be a very interesting piece off the bench for this Baltimore team as well. So first, going for this for the Philly side of this trade, I like it a lot. I think that Austin Hayes is a guy who is a very good platoon bat against lefties, can fill in when you don't want to play Marsh against lefties, can fill in when someone needs a day off as well. So I think that adding him at a pretty relatively low cost for just major leaguers that probably wouldn't be a long-term part of your team, and that you think you have enough depth to combat the loss of them, quote-unquote losses, I'll say. I think that it was a really good move. You're also freeing a roster spot trading 2 guys for 1. So Hayes brings a very easy skill set. He hits lefties well. He can field okay. That's kind of it. Again, I'm sure he'll be in left field whenever playing lefty batters. Again, I'm sure it'll be a platoon of him and Marsh. Could be a platoon of him and Schwarber as well if Schwarber needs a day off. And whenever someone needs a day off, I think you could kind of work around this Phillies team and try to get Hayes in. I think he's a very solid guy who can fill in as kind of a 6-man for this team, and I think really provides valuable skill set overall to this Phillies team. I like this trade a lot, and I think, again, it's a really solid move. Now, what I want to say is I don't think this should preclude them from getting another outfielder. I do have them getting an outfielder in my trade deadline prediction video, which I'll go over Monday, who is, pretty significant guy. So I think that it's really, again, this really shouldn't be something that you look at and say, this really shouldn't be something you look at and say, this is our answer, this is the guy we're going to get, this is who, this is our only deadline move. I don't think that should be the case. I don't think you should add another outfielder, and if this is the move that precludes you from getting something like that, I do think it's a fail, because I think this is the year to go all in if you're the Phillies. They have such a fantastic team that I think you really need to add more, and I think just adding Hayes would be a loss. Now, going over from this on the Baltimore side, I also like it. I think Hayes just became excess goods because of how many great young players you have on this team, and because of that, we heard rumors that they were shopping him. I didn't really expect them to trade him, actually, because he is a very solid player that is on a good Phillies team, on a good Orioles team, obviously, before, and you could use all the depth you can get, but it makes sense. Again, you have so many good young players that you can use to fill in his spots. It made some sense. Getting Dominguez, I think, was a really nice get. He has a really live arm, a lot of potential in that arm, and I think he can become a really high-leverage reliever for this Orioles team that they definitely need. Their bullpen hasn't been as locked down as it has been in the past few years, and adding in a controllable reliever like Sir Anthony Dominguez really helps out this Baltimore team and really helps out in their, of course, them trying to win a championship. Christian Pache as well is someone I really like the addition for of this Baltimore team. Pache is, of course, a defensive wizard. Came up as a top prospect with the Braves, and then the A's traded in the Matt Olson trade. Never was able to hit in the major leagues, but became a great defensive replacement in the 8th and 9th innings. Really good for speed on the base path as well. So I think provides a very valuable skill set off the bench for this Orioles team that I think really could come in clutch in the late innings of ball games. If you're in the 8th inning and you want to replace someone in the outfield defensively, Pache can be there. You want to replace someone on second base who's slow, and put in Pache. He can score on a hit to the outfield that maybe some other people couldn't. So I think Pache provides a very valuable skill set specifically for the playoffs, and I really like this move for both teams. I think it was just a quality baseball trade, one team trading a need for another need. And I really like this, and it makes my baseball heart happy that we're getting 2 competitive teams making a trade like this. Also, hello Kelsey, hi, in the chat there. So I want to say that is our show for today, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe to the notification bell to not only get notified when I upload, when all the other great content creators on this channel do. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As the baseball trade deadline gets going more, I think that there's going to be a lot more exciting trades, and I'm really excited to go over that on Monday. Usually I do go over my power rankings on Fridays, but the way that there were so many baseball trades over this past 24 hours and so much deadline news, I didn't really have time to do it, and I wanted to go over fully trade deadline stuff. So we'll definitely be doing that next week, but overall, a lot of trade deadline moves. They're going to continue to happen, and a lot more will happen over the deadline as well that I'm sure I'll talk about on Monday. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the weekend. So we'll see you when the weekend is over, obviously on Monday. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you then. Thanks, guys, and bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that great.